Hello and welcome to This Explainer. I am so thrilled you're here. Okay, let's dive into this. Today, we're unpacking a really powerful, first-hand story about a massive disconnect. You know, that canyon-sized gap between pristine academic theory and gritty, boots-on-the-ground operational reality. If you've ever tried to implement a brilliant idea in a complex organization and just hit a total brick wall, well, you're definitely going to want to pay close attention today. We're breaking down a true story about a sustainability workshop that went completely off the rails, but honestly in the best possible way. Everything I thought I knew was incomplete. Take a second and ask yourself, have you ever walked into a room feeling completely 100% prepared? Like you've got all your data checked, your presentation is perfectly polished, only to have your reality absolutely shattered within minutes. Yeah, it's a pretty humbling experience, but as we're going to see, it's often the exact moment where true learning actually begins. Section 1. The Boardroom Confidence, a False Sense of Security. So, our narrator's story kicks off in the early 2000s. They'd been teaching environmental science and sustainability at Salle University for several years. Picture this. They walk into this boardroom at a manufacturing company out in the CALABARZON region, just absolutely brimming with confidence. I mean, they had perfectly mastered the science, the frameworks, the theories, the whole shebang. They brought everything an academic could possibly bring to a corporate workshop. But within 30 minutes of stepping into that room, they realized they were entirely wrong about the single most crucial element: the people. Section 2. The Monday morning question, the collision of theory and reality. The narrator brought what we can basically call the prepared arsenal into the room. We're talking data, frameworks, international case studies. Sound familiar? It's your classic, standard corporate presentation toolkit. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is just how heavy, how academic, and how completely detached this material was from the actual, messy, day-to-day operations of a manufacturing plant. It was essentially a one-way broadcast of high-level concepts to folks whose absolute main concern was just keeping the machines running. 15. I want you to hold on to that number for a second. Sitting right there in that boardroom was an operations manager. Now, this wasn't someone who just read about manufacturing in some textbook, right? This was a guy who had been running that specific factory floor for 15 years. That's 15 years of real-world, localized, incredibly high-stakes experience. And right as the narrator was rolling through their pristine international case studies, this manager raises his hand.
Sir, that is very interesting, but what do I do on Monday morning? Wow. Just think about this sheer weight of that boardroom epiphany for a second. In one single sentence, that manager cut through all the jargon, all the theories, all the academic fluff. He wasn't disputing the science at all. He simply pointed out that, well, knowing the science didn't actually help him manage his factory floor when the weekend ended.
And that leads us right to the core realization of our story today. Sustainability knowledge without operational relevance is literally just an academic exercise. That single question triggered a massive paradigm shift for our narrator. The beautifully designed frameworks you learn in a university classroom, they are essentially useless to corporate operators if they aren't grounded in their daily, gritty reality. You simply can't just drop a theory into a factory and expect it to run. It has to be translated. Let's move to and see how this builds. To make it actually relevant, theory must be translated into the language of the business. You've got to speak the language of production schedules. You have to align with strict compliance deadlines. You absolutely have to respect budget constraints. And finally, you have to directly inform those Monday morning decisions. If your grand framework doesn't touch these 4 operational realities, well, you aren't leading. You're just lecturing. Section 3, From Telling to Asking, the Strategic Pivot. Realizing the presentation was tanking, our narrator made an immediate, honestly pretty brave shift in their whole communication approach. They ditched the declarative statements and switched to an engaging, questioning tone. And they started with this: what is your biggest environmental headache right now? Notice the huge shift here. The narrator stopped presenting and started facilitating. They put the focus right back on the lived experience of the operators sitting in that room. Then they immediately followed it up with this: what keeps you up at night about your regulatory compliance? We are seeing a complete Socratic turn happening in the boardroom here. It's building momentum, it's breaking down defensive walls, and it's getting straight to the absolute heart of the operator's real-world anxieties. And finally, they hit them with this question: what would change in your operations if you had a clearer picture of your water and energy consumption? The moment this specific inquiry hit the table, the dynamic completely flipped. I mean, the room, which had been passively maybe even politely listening to academic case studies suddenly just came alive. People leaned in. They started talking. They started really sharing. So why did the room suddenly come alive? Simple, because they already knew their problems. The folks on that factory floor didn't need a university professor to parachute in and tell them what was wrong. They lived it every single day. They didn't need to be lectured. They needed actionable empowerment. They just needed someone to help give them the tools to solve the exact problems they were already intimately familiar with.
Section 4. The Facilitator's True Role, a 25-year lesson. This concluding philosophy was born right there in that single manufacturing workshop, and it went on to shape an entire career. 25. That is how many years this exact core lesson has been carried into absolutely every single workshop the narrator has conducted since that fateful day. A full quarter of a century of replacing academic ego with deep operational empathy. And this brilliantly illustrates what that 25-year lesson culminated in. A true sustainability leader is someone whose job is not to tell people what they do not know, but to give them tools to act on what they already sense but cannot yet articulate. Just think about how powerful that is. It entirely shifts the role of the expert from being the hero with all the answers to being the guide with the right tools. It prioritizes empathy, genuine listening, and facilitation over ego and lecturing. Which brings us to a pretty stark comparison. The absolute worst kind of leadership meeting is the one where the facilitator, or the boss, speaks the most. But the best kind? That's the one where the participants leave feeling empowered, confident, and perfectly equipped to take action on Monday morning. I really want you to think about how this connects back to your own management style, your own meetings, and your own presentations. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to challenge your own approach to leadership, teaching, and training. Are you lecturing your team, or are you giving them the tools to act? The next time you walk into a room confident that you have all the answers, remember that operations manager who just wanted to know what to do on Monday morning. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking the right questions and keep turning that theory into reality.